Hey guys, it's Laurence here again from Jet Tutorials, and today we're going to be looking at a quick way to secure a server of ours with a popular tool called Fail2Ban. In particular, we'll be working with an Ubuntu server running SSH. Although this is just one use for Fail2Ban, the same principles obviously apply to securing any service. Before we dive in, let's take a quick look at how Fail2Ban works under the hood, so we can understand exactly what it is we're configuring. In short, the main function of Fail2Ban is to monitor log files for any lines that show suspicious activity. This could be failed authentication, where a user is trying to access a server with invalid credentials, too many requests, which may indicate spam or a DDoS, malicious requests, where users might be trying to access content that's forbidden, or any other custom rules that we want to look out for. These are all defined with regex. Once it's noticed an IP address is breaking one or more of these rules frequently, it automatically blocks them at a network level. We won't go into the deep technical details of how it works in this video, but be sure to check out the link in the description if you'd like to read more about it. Let's head over to our server and get started with setting it up. The first thing we want to do is log into our server and install Fail2Ban. To do this, we'll just run a sudo apt update and sudo apt install-y fail2ban. Hit enter and give it a few seconds. Once the packages are installed, let's head over to our config directory for Fail2Ban and take a quick look at what's there. And that is etc/fail2ban. We can see a few files and directories here, but the main ones that we care about are jail.conf, which includes the default config rules for Fail2Ban, the jail.d directory, which contains extensions to the default config, and this is where we'll put our own custom configuration, and the filter.d directory, which contains all the rules for identifying suspicious activity. We're not going to get into creating our own custom rules now, but it is useful once you get to a more advanced stage. To get a quick feel for how the config works, let's take a look at the default jail.conf file. To do that, we're just going to go less jail.conf. Immediately when we open it up, we can see that it's got some instructions in the comments, and particularly it's quite clear that we shouldn't modify this exact file, but rather in a jail.local file, or better yet, in separate .conf files in the jail.d directory. You'll also probably notice that there's quite a lot of talk about jails and filters. So to avoid getting confused, you can think of a jail as being all the rules that apply to a specific service that we're monitoring. So in our case, this would be SSH, but it could also be things like Apache or our mail server if we want to protect that. And you can think of filters as being the patterns that we're looking for in the log files. So let's go through this file a little bit and look for some default configuration values and try and figure out what they do. The first important setting for us is ignore IP, and this is a whitelist of IP addresses that we trust, and it's pretty useful to help us avoid accidentally banning ourselves. Next up is enabled, and we can see by default enabled is false, so that means that all jails are disabled unless we specifically enable them. Ban time is quite self-explanatory. It's just the duration of time that we're going to block an IP address for if we decide to ban it. The next two settings kind of go hand in hand, and that's find time and max retry. Max retries is the number of attempts that a user can make before we ban them, and find time is the time window in which they make those attempts. So basically what that means is if we want to ban users who fail 5 times in any 10-minute period, we would set max retry to 5 and find time to 10 minutes. Let's scroll down and take a look at the settings that are specific to SSH. So to do that, we're just going to go search for SSHD, and this is our section over here. The mode setting allows us to switch between a few different levels of security defined by the filter. So for SSH, the default mode is normal, but we also have the option of setting this to aggressive to be even more strict about how we're going to find failures. And the log path is just the location of the log file which we want to monitor. So in this case, that would be var/log/auth.log. So let's exit out of this and start creating our own rules. The next thing we want to do is head over into our jail.d directory. And we can see that there's already a default config there for our platform. Let's take a look at that. We can see by default the SSHD jail is enabled, which is great. And let's just add some basic config here. So for a start, let's make sure we don't ban ourselves. So to do this, we can just go ignore IP with our IP address. And let's say by default, we'd like to set our ban time to 7 days. That should be enough. We can just quickly restart Fail2Ban. So to do that, we can just go sudo systemctl restart Fail2Ban. Once that's done, we can check on the status of Fail2Ban by just going sudo Fail2Ban client status, and we can see that the SSHD jail is enabled. If we want to check on any bans that are in that gel, we can do the same command, just with SSHD at the end. And we can see that currently nobody's banned. From here, let's test it out by simulating a user attempting to brute force their way into our server. So to do this, I'm going to open up another terminal window from a remote server and try to log in a few times with the incorrect credentials. After one failure, let's take a look at our Fail2Ban status again, and we can see that currently one has failed. That's great, it means it's picked up our failure. Let's keep trying to log in. 3 failures now. Let's keep trying. If we check on our jail at this point, we'll notice that we've currently got a banned IP address, and that's good. That means that since we failed 5 times in that 10-minute window, it's decided to ban us. We can confirm this by looking at the IP tables rules. This is basically what Fail2Ban uses just to block network requests from any address. And here we can see that it's rejecting any connections from that address. If we try again to connect, the connection is refused. So how do we unban ourselves? Well, with Fail2Ban, that's quite simple. All we have to do is go sudo fail2ban client, set the jail name, which is SSHD, unban IP, and the IP address of that server that's banned, which happens to be 18153.68.21. If we try and log in again, it asks us for a password. We're unbanned. Great. That works great for now, but this only applies to SSH attempts with a username and password. In a production environment, your users are far more likely to authenticate with an SSH key. Let's change our SSH settings to only allow key authentication and see if it works there too. To do this, we're just going to head into the etc ssh directory, and we're going to edit the file sshd-config. You'll notice that there's a line that says password authentication yes. You want to change this to no, and just restart SSH. Once again, if we try to sign in from our attacking machine using only the public key, we notice that it doesn't work. Let's try again, still doesn't work. Keep trying a few times, and you'll notice that we're not getting banned. Let's take a look at our Fail2Ban jail status. It's still the same number of failed attempts, no matter how many times we fail with public key, so it's obviously not finding that in its rules. To help Fail2Ban find these entries, the first thing we need to do is make sure that they're logged properly in the SSH logs. So we're going to edit that sshd-config file again. We're going to want to find the log level setting, and we want to change that to verbose. Last thing we want to do is edit our Fail2Ban config again. And we want to set the SSHD mode to aggressive. Restart both services. And let's try to sign in a few more times. After 3 retries, let's take a look at what our jail looks like. Try a few more times. And we're getting connection refused. Let's take one more look at our jail. And there we have it. Fail2Ban has successfully banned us for trying to authenticate with an incorrect public key. Mission accomplished. And that'll be all for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, don't forget to check out my other ones. And of course, hit like and subscribe. I'll be doing loads more like this, so stay tuned. Cheers for now.